Welcome to Sinful's Horror Stories. Sit back, relax, stay sinful. Story number 1. My mom was at Sam's Club all alone, shopping for groceries like most do on Sunday, when a man starts to follow her. She described this man as pretty obviously not all there, wearing typical gang clothing or clothes people wear in prisons. Shorts, long shirt, and high socks. The man also had a tattoo on his eye, a spade-like on a deck of cards. I just want to say very quickly that my mom is a very small woman. She is 4'11" at most, and she is pretty innocent looking. She is one of those ladies that likes to wear all pink and wear pigtails. Just for reference of how different these two people are and the situation at hand. My mom starts to get pretty anxious as the man starts to follow her through the store, getting closer and closer as time goes by, eventually seeming to get so close that they could be shopping together. She tried to make eye contact with a worker to try and get help, but the worker didn't see her and kept on doing his thing. She also tried to tell the man following her she has a husband, and that she wasn't interested in hanging out with him, but that didn't stop him from making comments about it. Eventually, another worker comes up and my mom makes eye contact with her and mouths, "Help me." The lady quickly acts and tries to get the man to move away from my mom. He wouldn't move, saying my mom and him are good friends and shopping together. My mom said she almost lost her cool right then, scared out of her mind. The lady asked my mom to come with her for her refund items, and they walked with her. The man continued to follow them, but the worker took my mom into a back room and had two other workers come and get the man following my mom out of the store. They had a very large man follow my mom around the store and make sure she was safe the rest of the time she shopped. Apparently the man following my mom had been following someone else, and they had gotten away and saw him start to follow my mother. My mom's husband came and picked her up just in case he was still around the area. But to the man that followed my mom, let's not meet, and please don't meet my mom again either. Story number 2. This happened a year ago when I was a senior in college. It was a football game day, and after the game ended, I went to a bar with my friends for a couple drinks, and then decided to go home. I was in bed asleep by 10:30 because it had been a long day. Around 4:30 a.m., I woke up to a dark figure laying in bed with me, leaning over me. I was so disoriented that all I managed to mutter was, "What are you doing?" And the guy quickly jumped over me and ran out of my door, down the stairs, and out the front door. I was in shock and so confused as to what had just happened. I lived with 3 other girls. 2 of them had friends in town and just happened to lock their doors that night, and the other wasn't here. So what's really scary is that the man walked all around our house and even came all the way upstairs to find my room. We called the cops and they came over and took statements. Then they told us that our neighbor called them 30 minutes before us and reported that she had woke up to a dark figure standing in her doorway. We were all so freaked out that 5 of us slept in one queen bed for the rest of the night after that. To this day, I'm terrified to be home alone. They never found the guy, but I never hope I see him again. Story number 3. I was a latchkey kid before they coined the term. Single parent home, television dinners, way too much time on the Commodore 64. A combination of depression and loneliness had turned me into the 12-year-old who cried wolf. I would call my mom saying I was sick or that I was locked out, anything to make her come home. The problem metastasized, and soon all the parents from our church and PTA were wise to my antics. No one would even take my call. A couple of days before my 13th birthday, I was microwaving some dinner when the phone rang. I picked it up and the voice sounded like a man, doing a falsetto of a little girl. Then there was the sound of touch-tone numbers as he quickly hung up. About 20 minutes later, the phone rang again. I picked it up and there was a heavy sigh. The same falsetto voice came next. "Are you still there? Hey, he should have been there by now." I asked who it was. The guy ignored me. "You just stay put. He's gonna be there any time now." More touch-tone numbers, like he was slamming the phone down but missing. Then dial tone. I was pretty spooked, but also in a lot of trouble with my mom for embarrassing her with the church crowd. It was getting dark. I locked the doors and windows, slapped the 2x4 into the slider, and did my best not to think about it. An hour later, it was completely dark outside. The phone rang again. I ignored it, but it kept ringing. We didn't have an answering machine, so this could go on all night. I finally picked it up. "He's on your street." This was crowed out. The guy with the weird voice was breathing like he had run a mile. "Right down your street." I hung up the phone. I was terrified. I left the phone off the hook and went around checking the doors and windows. When I was in the back of the house, I saw a headlight. Someone was in the driveway. My mom wasn't due for another 2 hours. I dropped and crawled over to the front windows and peered over the sill. There was a man finishing a cigarette in an old station wagon in our driveway. The car was idling. He tossed the butt, coughed and pulled back into the street, going back the way he had come. And that was the end of it. I huddled in a corner until my mom came home and gave her a big hug. Story number 4. This happened a couple of months ago. I've lived in the same neighborhood for a few years now, so I have my spots that I frequent. I usually go to the same grocery store, gas station, restaurants, park, and liquor store. One night I went to my neighborhood liquor store to pick up a bottle of wine. I parked and sat in my car for a moment to respond to some texts before I went in. A car pulled into the spot next to me. As this car parked, I noticed the driver was staring at me through my peripheral vision. I glanced over and it was a slightly older man looking at me. Not terribly unusual, and it wasn't like he was leering at me. But I guess since I'm a woman and have had plenty of creepy experiences in my life, I'm kind of always on alert, and I always try to be aware of my surroundings. I get out of the car and head into the store. I notice a guy next to me does the same, and now he's right behind me. I knew exactly what I wanted, so I grabbed my bottle of wine and headed to the register. The guy also seemingly picked something out quickly because he beat me to the register. It was nighttime, and I just had the feeling that I didn't want to walk out of the store at the same time as this man. I watched him walk out and get into his car. I paid for my wine, but I didn't walk out of the store until I saw him pull out and drive away. I get into my car and head towards home. The store is maybe 7 minutes from my apartment and on a busy street until you get closer to my apartment, where it becomes a bit quieter and much more residential. You eventually turn into my complex, but there wasn't a ton of traffic that night. As I turned down the street, I noticed a car pulled over on the side of the busy street with their lights on. It immediately pulls out behind me as I pass. I recognized the car was the man from the liquor store. I instantly had a bad feeling and I started to feel so vulnerable. It definitely felt like he was parked there waiting for me to turn onto the street. I was talking to a new guy at the time and felt like calling him would make me feel more safe, as this guy was directly behind me the whole way. I told him that I'm sure he's just going the same way as I am. The street eventually turns into one lane with a bike lane, so nowhere for him to go unless he turns off anyway. Finally, I turn into my complex and the guy is still behind me. This isn't good. I live where I live because it's the most affordable place in my neighborhood. I live in an expensive city, and I do love the location. One of the biggest drawbacks to living here is that the parking lot is very poorly lit. I turn around the corner towards my building. He does the same. I keep my eye on the rearview mirror while talking to the guy on the phone, telling him everything that's happening. As I slow down to pull into my parking space, I notice a car drives past me. I thought he must live here too. It was just a coincidence. I start to get out of my car and walk towards my building, and I notice that the guy had just made a circle in the parking lot and drove up next to me, slowly, and he was smiling. I always walk quickly to my front door at night, but I suddenly had the instinct to run, so I did. I got into my apartment as fast as possible and watched as the man drove away. I didn't sleep well that night, knowing that this person saw me go into my apartment and now knows where I live. Story number 5. This was about 4 or 5 years ago when I was 19 or 20 years old. I lived in a small house on a plot of land in a nice neighborhood, with 2 other houses on it, one beside me and one right behind me. On one particular evening, I was relaxing in the living room watching YouTube videos. My roommate and her dog were out of town, as was my boyfriend at the time, so I had the place to myself. It was during the summer, so I had all the windows open to let the breeze in. These were older windows with no screens. Anyway, I was sitting with my face maybe 1 foot away from my open window, which doesn't mean anything but becomes a creepy thought after what happened next. I decided to get something out of my room, and as I walked in I could see what I thought to be a man's face looking through my bedroom window, directly at me. I couldn't decide if this was real or not, and the only thing I could say was, After I said that, still staring right at the window, the man's face slowly moved away from the windowsill. He was still staring at me the whole time he moved. What really frightens me is how slowly he moved away from the window, like he didn't even care that I had seen him. Frightened, I ran around the house, closing and locking all the doors and windows. I grabbed the largest knife in my kitchen and stupidly went outside and said, "Hello? Hello?" I saw a man walk past my house, and looking back on experience, it was the man looking through my window. This all happened very late at night with no one else around. I slept with the knife by my bed that night. The man was actually caught not too long after this incident for looking into an underage neighbor girl's window. So if there's any chance whatsoever, creepy window man, let's not meet again. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe for future content. I want to welcome all the new subscribers to the channel. Glad that you guys found me. Thank you guys for all the loving and supportive comments. I truly enjoy reading every single one. Although I may not have time to respond to each one, do know that I appreciate every single one of you guys. Till we meet again, stay sinful.